Hello and welcome to Watching Movies with April and Kenny. I am your Kenny.
And I'm April.
And we just watched a movie, didn't we, April?
We just watched a movie.
We just watched a movie.
It was really bad.
It was, yeah, I mean, spoilers.
We did not like it.
Didn't like it. Did not like it. So we did a little experiment. So we started this show watching movies that we had both seen. And we're still going to do more of that, for sure. So we started with Pride and Prejudice, we both loved. Then we went to Goblet of Fire, we knew we both hated as well. And then, coughing, good. And then we went on to watch some movies that one of us had seen. Mm-hmm. So I showed you and Samantha 2001. You showed me the classic Con Air, Perfection. Equally good. Yep. We both appreciated them equally. And then we've been watching some more movies we've both seen. But we had this idea. Let's try to watch a movie that neither of us have seen.
A classic that lots of other people have seen.
That's where I wanted to start. Like, a movie that lots of people have seen, lots of people like, we've heard about, but have never gotten around to. I feel like everybody has those kinds of movies. Uh-huh. We also talked about Die Hard, but you don't like good action movies.
We don't know if it's good.
Well,
necessarily.
I'm not saying I don't know because I haven't seen it.
Right.
But you just don't like pure action movies.
No.
You like the Fast and Furious movies.
Because they're so funny.
But not because they're good action movies.
Right.
So we were going to do Die Hard, but we were like, nah, that's not only April's scene. We do both like romantic comedies.
And we have not reviewed a romantic comedy on the pod yet.
If you don't count Pride and Prejudice.
I would not consider that a rom-com.
No, it's not a modern... It's a romance.
Yes.
It's not a romantic comedy.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So, Sleepless in Seattle. Romantic comedy.
Yes.
It's a classic.
Well known. Most people have seen it, I feel like.
In my head, I don't know if you agree with this, I feel like people have just a generally good outlook on it.
Yeah.
It's well regarded.
Yeah.
In general.
Considering, I feel like I said, I feel like most people have seen it. Like, most people don't see things unless, like, it's generally well liked.
Yeah. And I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Sleepless in Seattle.
Although I did talk about You've Got Mail, and I've never really heard anybody say negative things about You've Got Mail.
You've Got Mail looks real good.
Yes.
Next to this movie.
Oh, yes. I would agree with that.
But it's got its own issues, let us say. We'll get into that as we progress. So, okay, let's get into the movie.
Yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle, 1993. What a year it was, 1993.
Sure.
Director, Nora Ephron, queen of the romantic comedies in this era. And, I mean, you can't differentiate Nora Ephron, Tom Hanks, Meg. It's like this trifecta of romantic comedy in the 90s that you had. Only note I took about Nora Ephron in regards to this movie is she was a journalist.
That makes sense. I feel like in a lot of her movies, like, one of the characters is like a writer or a journalist.
Or cares about literature.
Something about books.
Yes.
Like that, so that tracks.
It tracks, and also how much she cares about the writing itself.
Yes.
Seems very important.
Yes.
So she's a writer, and lots of writers like writing about writers, and it seems like Nora Ephron's no different. So that's the only note I had on her. Do you have any other extra notes on Nora?
Nope.
I generally think I like You've Got Mail. We'll get into later. I think is okay. Yeah. When Harry Met Sally.
Good movie.
Great movie.
Genuinely good movie.
Actually, one of my favorite. You asked me later as a tangent, what is your favorite rom-com?
Yeah. Not
romance, but rom-com. And I think I would put When Harry Met Sally, at least at the very tip top there, if not my favorite.
Makes sense.
So, nothing against... This is not bias against I like romantic comedies, and
I love romantic comedies.
Right.
I've seen a lot of romantic comedies.
So what's at the top of your list? To go on a quick tangent here.
I don't know. I really don't.
Just tell me some you like. You don't. It doesn't have to be a list of like here are my favorites. Just like give me some that you like.
Oh God!
Right now,
Not...
3, 2, 1, go.
I'm blanking on every romantic comedy that's ever been made. The Wedding Singer is a really good one. Mm-hmm. 51st Dates is a really good one, too.
Okay.
Same people in those two movies.
Yeah.
They just have good chemistry together.
Happy Gilmore?
I watched a ton. Like, I watched See, the things that pop up in my mind as romantic comedies that I enjoyed were things that I watched as, like, a teenager.
What about Bridget Jones' Diary?
No,
don't like that.
Not. No, I don't like
How
that.
How about Love Actually?
No, I hate that.
Okay, so maybe you don't like romantic comedies.
I like romantic comedies that are legitimately, like, romantic. Like, Love Actually has some really weird things in it.
Yeah, it doesn't have a purely, like... It doesn't have a pure message.
No.
Let's say that.
Like, I think of things like 27 Dresses. Like, that was something that I watched which is obviously not the best romantic comedy, but I watched it as a teen and loved it. Or, like, 13 Going on 30 was a really good romantic comedy that I liked as a teenager. Like, those are the things that pop into my mind. So, not necessarily the best, but enjoyable.
So, this is a good question. How much does, like, being that age and nostalgia play into it?
I feel like nostalgia is huge.
Because, like, if you, let's say one of those movies you hadn't seen at that age and went back to, do you think that you would have the same, or a similar even, do you think you would be as positive about it?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how it is for most movies that you see when you're younger.
That's fair.
And probably a lot of people who like this movie like watched it originally and like when they were younger and thought it was good, and so they probably still think it's good, but like since we were watching it for the very first time in like a critical way, we didn't like it as much.
No, not really. I don't think that's totally fair, because I've definitely watched movies from older movies as an adult and liked them,
but I've also watched movies as an adult that I liked as a kid, and I've been like, oof.
Definitely.
Not that good.
And maybe that's part of what we're saying here, is that this one doesn't survive the nostalgia barrier.
Could be, yeah.
Okay, well, that'll be something we reserve for the ultimate review. The cast, we said Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan. In my head, they were in like 5 different rom-coms together.
But really, it was like 3.
It was like 3, and I only saw 1.
Yeah.
Previously.
Yeah.
I saw You Got Mail.
Yeah.
And I knew this one existed. And then I honestly didn't hear about Joe versus the Volcano. It wasn't on my radar until the last few years. And I still haven't seen it.
I've never heard of it until you said it like, I don't know, a month ago.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is that?
It's supposed to be good. I've liked everything that I've seen and read about it. It's very weird.
So I looked up, Joe versus the Volcano came out before this movie, had worse Rotten Tomatoes score. Then this one came out, had like 75% for the critics and the audience, and then You've Got Mail. And You've Got Mail had slightly worse ratings than Sleepless in Seattle.
So it's like a diminishing
trail?
So
it was like lower for Joe versus Volcano.
Then up for Sleepless.
Up for Sleepless and down a bit for You've Got Mail, which I feel like they have the best chemistry in You've Got Mail. Well, I've not seen Joe versus Volcano, obviously, but like they didn't get to have any chemistry in this movie.
Yes, so that's
which is another thing we'll talk about.
Big thing we'll get into in the movie itself. But yes, in general, they do have good chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
They are good on screen together. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess we just saw it, so full disclosure for the recording here. Most of the time when we do these, we watch the movie, we go away, we take notes, we come back sometime later, maybe a couple weeks later, and have these discussions. Today we were just like, it's fresh in our minds, we've got lots to say about it. Neither of us have seen it, so let's just sit down and talk. So we just saw it. So we just had the conversations about Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in the commentary track, which you can listen to here in a couple of weeks as well. Yeah. But what is it about them that makes them good on screen?
Well, we talked a lot about how Tom Hanks is not necessarily a hot guy.
Yes.
But he's very charming, so that helps make him hot.
Yes.
Meg Ryan is very charming and also very hot.
So she's great.
Because they're able to be charming together. I feel like I feel like they're very natural, even as actors. Like, and the way it's written obviously lends itself to that, but the way they are able to speak to each other, not necessarily in this movie, but like You've Got Mail, they speak to each other very naturally and like they actually like each other. It just feels
right. Which is interesting. So we also talked about When Harry Met Sally, and we addressed the question, is Billy Crystal hot?
And he's not.
The answer is no. But he makes sense for that character and that dynamic they had where they just didn't like each other at first.
At all.
Which is great. He's great for that. It's harder to buy, because like in You've Got Mail, they actually are kind of polar opposites in certain ways, but they don't know that at first because they get along. Mm-hmm. If you tried to sell me on Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan don't like each other or get along at first, that'd be a tough pitch. That'd be a tough pill to swallow. Uh-huh. I mean, I guess now that we've seen so many movies with them together, it's hard to separate your bias there.
Sure.
But yeah, they're good. Everybody knows that.
And then you brought up that you felt like there weren't any other like couples, like two people who had been in multiple rom-coms together.
Right.
So I looked that up.
Yes.
You mentioned Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, which they've been in 3 together.
As many as Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Which I also think their chemistry is pretty good together.
They actually have a very similar dynamic to Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, where it's like Adam Sandler is like a little schlubby.
Yes.
Not like an ugly guy or anything, but like Drew Barrymore is obviously very pretty.
Very cute.
And they're both charming in their own ways.
Yeah,
Adam Sandler's
true.
a little more acerbic. Like,
yeah.
They have a very similar dynamic going on.
So I looked it up to see if there were any other instances of that. And so Julia Roberts and Richard Gere were in 2 rom-coms together. Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride.
Oh, right.
Just 2 of them. Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling were in 2 together. Crazy Stupid Love and La La Land.
Yes.
And Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence were in 2 like romances together, which was Silver Linings Playbook and Serena.
I don't know that one.
I haven't seen that one either, but
it seems like 2 is typically the magic number.
Yeah.
Where it's like they try to recapture the magic and maybe it doesn't work quite as well.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it because why do we want to see like the same dynamic?
I feel like it would be it's a lot less common now because for me to see the 2 same people as a couple in another movie would take me out of it almost.
Definitely.
To make me think of a different movie and them interacting in a different way.
Totally. Like, I mean, that's how I feel about these movies with Tom Hanks. It's the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movie. Like,
right.
I don't even... This movie is... I think that's why maybe I've never seen this movie. It's like, I feel like I've already seen it.
I've seen the other one.
In my brain, you know? It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
I will say this. I mean, if you've read anything about Joe versus the Volcano, very different.
Different concept.
Very different vibe.
I've only read the like premise of it.
Yeah, it's unique. Maybe that will be a good follow-up that we can check out. Okay, so the rest of the cast, there are many people in this cast. I pointed many of them out.
And I clearly did not listen.
During our viewing. But we've got Bill Pullman from Independence Day, President of the United States.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrews from the Titanic. The ship will sink. David Hyde Pierce from Frasier.
Miles.
Yep. Rosie O'Donnell from Rosie O'Donnell.
Yep, correct.
And some twerp as the kid.
The worst character in the movie.
Don't care about him. He doesn't matter. But yeah, there's a lot of people that you will recognize if you watched movies from this time. And when I was watching this, I thought this multiple times. I was like, "Wow, Bill Pullman looks good in this," and like, "Wow, he looks just like Niles from." This is from the time. It's like within the 5-year span that I saw all these actors.
Yeah.
So yeah,
of course they look the same.
No shit. This is them in their prime when they're doing their major acting. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say about the rest of the cast.
Yeah,
I do think they kind of waste David Hyde Pierce.
He was in 2 scenes.
He's in 2 scenes
for 30 seconds.
He's in the opening dinner
which
scene,
I did not realize.
Which you didn't, because he says like 2 words. It's barely doesn't matter. He could be an extra.
Yeah.
And then he has like a real brief conversation with Meg Ryan.
Where he says like 10 words.
Yes. And we were talking to each other, so I don't even know what his relationship is to her.
I don't
Is he an
remember
in-law?
either.
Is he a brother?
I have no clue.
Don't know. And it literally doesn't matter.
No, because it never comes up again.
Does not matter at all. So that was kind of weird. Okay. So I think we can get into taglines for the movie. Okay. Now, we have a special game that we decided to play, and if we like it, this might be a running theme. You looked up the tagline and told me how many words were in it, which is 20. And I am trying to write my own tagline, matching that number, and trying to guess what the tagline is. Yes. So I think I should go first?
Yeah, you should go first.
Okay, so here's my tagline for Sleepless in Seattle. He didn't believe he'd find love again. She didn't believe in old-fashioned romance. This November, they'll be sleepless in Seattle.
I'd like to make a note that this came out in June, not November.
Well, I didn't know, so replace this June. They'll be sleepless in Seattle.
Okay, you want to hear the real one?
Yeah.
What if someone you never met, someone you never saw, someone you never knew was the only someone for you. Thoughts?
Okay. I guess I'm intrigued.
That's a lot of words to say nothing.
I wouldn't call that a tagline. It's not catchy.
No.
It does intrigue me more than the actual movie does, though. Because in my head, the premise of the movie, I guess let's get into analysis.
Wait, can I give my tagline?
Yes, please.
Okay. My tagline was, what happens when a stranger becomes obsessed with you? I think this could very easily be turned into a horror movie.
Definitely.
Probably somewhere out there's a supercut, like, trailer version, horror movie version of this.
I was literally saying it during the commentary. Like, I'm imagining the Sting music, Tom Hanks opens the door to the boathouse. Jonah? Jonah, are you here? Nothing.
Meg Ryan pops out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a horror movie.
Absolutely.
So the premise.
Yeah.
The premise is Tom Hanks is happily married with the world's worst child. That's not true, but he's married, has a single child. Wife dies suddenly, young. We don't know what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter.
Cancer, I think.
It doesn't matter. She dies suddenly and young, and now he's grieving.
He's sleepless.
In Seattle.
And he moves to Seattle.
He's in Chicago. Decides for a change of scenery to, like, help his grieving process. He and his son move to Seattle. The son gets him on a radio show with a radio psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And the son is like, my dad's sad. I wish he would find a new wife. And ropes his dad into it. And his dad kind of spills his heart, says how much he loved his wife and what was so special. This causes a nationwide frenzy of people who are just crushing on this guy.
Dying to get with a grieving widower.
Including our other lead, Meg Ryan, who lives in... Is she in New York?
I don't know. Baltimore.
She's in Baltimore. She's in Baltimore. Other side of the country.
Remember, they pull up the map.
Yes, I do remember that now. Thank you. And also the map icon of the entire movie.
There's a lot of maps in this.
Anyway, she happens to be listening. She's just got engaged to... It's like the practical marriage. A lot of the elements of this movie are fine for romantic comedies. Mm. She's marrying for practical reasons to a totally decent guy, but she's not super thrilled about it. Like, it doesn't speak to her heart. Yeah. She hears this radio show, and she becomes obsessed. Mm-hmm. And the movie is about eventually they meet. And that's it. Uh-huh. That's the premise of the movie. Uh-huh. So your tagline, what would happen if the person for you lived in Baltimore?
That's not my tagline.
The actual tagline of the movie. Yeah. I mean, is there any... Here's a good first question from me.
Okay.
Is this a good premise for a rom-com?
I think it could be. But it's kind of like you could have made it good if you made it more like You've Got Mail. Like if they were actually sending letters back and forth to each other and falling in love that way.
Yes.
Could have been good.
So yeah, big part of the movie early on is this call happens and suddenly Sam, Tom Hanks, is being flooded with letters from desperate housewives all over the country who want to...
Suck his dick.
Get in his pants.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And one of them is Meg Ryan. As a positive note for the movie, I do like the scene where he's on the radio and she's driving and is listening to him.
Crying.
And is also, like, on the same vibe as him. Like, like saying the same things. On the same... Like, that's actually the most in sync and, like, mesh they are the entire movie.
Well, that was part of my notes that, like, she was, like, normal at first. Like...
Yes.
Respond, like you said, listening to the radio show, responding the same way that he did, being like, this psychiatrist person's, like, you're being invasive.
Yeah, it's like, back off.
Was on his side, and then it really devolved.
Yeah, and that's a good start. I like that. And I was fully, like, in my head, I could see where this movie could have gone.
You were making predictions very early.
Aggressive predictions. Aggressive predictions. So, let's back off, I guess, here. So, at the same time, you're getting the setup I've already given about Tom Hanks. It starts very dour, the movie does. He's in Seattle. He's sleepless. But then on the other side of the equation, Meg Ryan and Bill Pullman
just got
engaged and are meeting his parents.
He's meeting her
family for the
first time.
So David Hyde Pierce is her brother.
Yeah, a relation of some sort.
Got it. But yeah, he's meeting them for the first time. And, it's a classic setup of, like, her family is very, like, domineering and, like, uptight. And, like, it's very, like, Rose DeWitt-Picator. Like, it feels like things are just rushing ahead, and she's doing something even though in her heart she doesn't really want to do it. Classic romantic heroine shit.
And something they really harp on in this is that he's allergic to a lot of things.
So in this...
Definitely allergic to most things.
This opening scene really hammers that home. It's like a 5-minute scene where they're talking about allergies and how he would die.
His head swells up the size of a watermelon.
He's allergic to this, that, and the other.
Strawberries.
Other
nuts.
Things. Yeah.
The other guy's allergic to bees.
Yes.
It's a whole conversation.
And he starts sneezing. And I thought for sure where the movie was going is Bill Pullman was going to die sometime in the first act. And then it would be like, oh, I see. You've got her life has just fallen apart.
Meg Ryan is like a widow.
Right, where she thought her life was going has suddenly fallen out from under her. And there's this guy whose wife died a year ago. His life has fallen apart.
She can really relate to him.
And then they'll make a connection of some kind.
This direction would have made the movie much better.
Yes. Not only would it give them something to bond over, but it would fix the problem of Meg Ryan as a piece of shit.
Being a really awful person.
In this movie.
The whole time.
Okay, so let's zoom out farther now.
Okay.
So, back to You've Got Mail. Can you talk to me about your problem with You've Got Mail? Because I agree.
In You've Got Mail, Meg Ryan is a pretty good person.
She's a sweetheart.
And Tom Hanks is a piece of shit.
An actual piece of shit.
Opposite. He is like trying to take down her little local business.
He's big business.
He's like just a general asshole. And they're exchanging emails. They don't realize it's each other, but he realizes pretty quickly that it's her. And he continues to like exchange emails with her, and she thinks she's exchanging emails with like the love of her life, basically doesn't know that it's him. And he like manipulates his way into spending more time with her and like going on walks and going to the farmer's market and like orchestrating all of this until like she is going to meet the person that she has been emailing, doesn't know it's him, and realizes when she gets there that it's him. And she's not upset that he lied to her the whole time. She's not concerned. She's just like, yeah, it's you. And then they like kiss and happily ever after. I'm like, he's an awful person and you probably should have punched him in the face for what he did.
Or at least stormed off and been like,
yeah,
we're done.
No contact.
Right.
And in this movie, it's like the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Tom Hanks' character in this movie, I think is a generally good guy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I'm just so on his side for most of it. Even in the opening thing. So the inciting incident where his shitty ass son calls into this radio station and says, hey, my dad's a sad sack. He needs to get laid. I need a new mom. He needs a new wife. And he entertains his boy. He's like, oh, this, I will do this for you. He's on this call. And he's saying to this radio psychiatrist, I'm just going to keep getting out of bed every morning and trying to...
keep breathing in and out.
Until eventually I'm going to get through this.
I don't have to think about getting up and breathing in and out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep pushing forward with the knowledge that eventually I will get past this. I will get to a point where I can live normally.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a very good attitude
Yeah.
to have. That's a really good way to look at it. Is to know that even though it's not okay right now, I recognize that it will be okay eventually. Mm. What could be a healthier attitude to have? And this psychiatrist is like, I think you need some pussy.
Yeah, then she takes callers, like women callers who want to call in and talk about him.
And instantly there's like this nationwide craze about this.
Which is so strange to me.
Can't really comment.
We talked about this too on our commentary.
I'm willing to suspend a little disbelief,
Yes.
like, well, I think about the it's a little bit more magical thinking. I love making bad comparisons between movies. Like in Willy Wonka, when there's like a worldwide craze to tour a chocolate factory, it's like, who really cares about touring a chocolate factory this much? But, you accept it. It's like, you just accept, okay, there's a nationwide craze about this thing. I guess it's not the craziest thing in the world. Like, the things that trend on Twitter nowadays, sometimes it's just the most random shit. Like, one person's story gets blown up to such a degree.
Well, if I was a person at this time and heard this on the radio, I probably would get invested in
hearing
this
the story.
person. But
would you go after them?
I wouldn't stalk him, no. And if I were to write a letter, it would be like, I really feel for you, I hope you're doing okay. Not like, do you want to go on a date? Like,
yeah. I feel like the additional story of woman hires a private investigator to spy on and travels cross country to...
That's where we really bridge.
That's an extra detail on this story that would be like, oh, this guy's life has been ruined by this incident. Mm-hmm. If you're being realistic.
Which is essentially the next part that, like we talk about this too, but there's so little that happens in this movie. Almost nothing happens in this movie.
No, there are no events in this movie. So let's just sum up as briefly as we can what happens.
So
wife dies.
Yeah.
Moves to Seattle.
Yeah.
Radio thing.
Yeah. He starts dating someone.
He starts dating another girl.
Meg Ryan hires a private investigator to take pictures of him while he's on a date with this woman, which is so creepy.
It doesn't go anywhere either, does it?
No, nothing happens from that at all. You just get like the zoom in of this guy taking pictures. And that's the end of that. And then she gets on a plane and goes to Seattle to literally stalk him.
And his son.
Also, in the part where she goes to Seattle, they end up at the same gate at the airport.
Yeah.
And he, like, looks at her.
And is mesmerized.
And falls in love immediately. And then is, like, following her through the airport. And then nothing happens there either.
No.
And then she literally stalks him. Watches him while he plays with his son on the beach. Like, literally, you can see her head peeping around a corner while she watches him.
Yeah.
And then, what?
They see each other. So like,
she comes back the next day.
There's a weird detail here that I don't understand. So, so we're given the overall plot, but zooming in here, yeah, she goes to the beach. She's, like, seeing him and the kid. And then she sees him hugging another woman. Uh-huh. It's not his girlfriend.
It's not? Are you sure?
I'm positive. It's
friend.
It's his friend's wife that he went. It's Mr. Andrews' wife. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it wasn't just his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Why they set up the girlfriend in the first place. But anyway, she like sees that, oh, he's with somebody else, some hoe, as she says.
Oh God, yeah. There's some weird misogynistic. I mean, I guess that's a sign of the times.
It is, yeah. But they say hi to each other.
She stands in the middle of the road.
Almost gets by a car and
we
just...
think she's going to get hit by a bus.
And she just leaves.
Yeah, they say hi. He walks up he's across the street, says hello, she says hello, and that's the end of the scene.
They hard cut to her back in Baltimore.
Not a conversation, nothing, she's gone.
And from there, the kid...
the end of the movie.
The kid is like, you shouldn't be with your current girlfriend, you should be with Annie. Meg Ryan's
who
character.
Who he doesn't know and has never met and has received one letter.
One letter. And it's like, this letter. And the way we know they're meant to be is she likes
baseball.
This team or this guy, this one baseball player.
Yeah.
And even Tom Hanks is like, everybody knows this player is good. The son takes it into his own hands, flies alone to New York.
On the behest of his bitch friend Jessica.
Pointless. Who
loves speaking in single letters.
In acronyms. Made up acronyms. Anyway, he flies to New York.
Wait, we're skipping over this whole part where he and Jessica respond with a letter, and Meg Ryan receives the letter, and the letter's not particularly well written because it was written by an 8-year-old.
Right.
And she is like, ugh, this guy is the worst. I am not ever going to think about him ever again. It's very strange.
Right.
She's just like done with him because he didn't write very well.
Right.
And she thinks that's going to be the end of it.
To be fair, that's the most that she knows about him at this point, really.
Well, yeah.
this letter that she's received is the most she has. So yeah, she's like, I'm making a mistake. I'm going to go back to Bill Pullman.
Who is coincidentally in New York.
Yes. And going to live happily ever after with him. The letter said, let's meet on the Empire State Building.
On Valentine's Day. Which
is like the classic movie An Affair to Remember.
Sure.
Which we both know.
Is that what the movie was in that?
I had to look it up.
Okay.
I had to look it up.
They reference this movie several times and say the name of it, and we just never caught it.
It just doesn't matter. Who cares? Anyway, for Tom Hanks, this movie now turns into a thriller, where it's like, my son is probably
Has
dead.
been kidnapped.
So he flies to New York to find his son and rescue him. And Meg Ryan
finally has a conversation with
Bill Pullman.
And says that... I don't even know what she says to him.
She's basically like, I don't want to settle for this. It's not right. And Bill Pullman says, I don't want you to settle for me.
Right.
See you later.
She said, what does she say? I don't deserve you, or you're too good for me.
Yeah, I don't deserve you.
And he's like, I'm not going to say
he
that.
Says
but
no.
Okay.
Yeah, literally says, I don't want to say that, but you're not wrong. Which this is like...
And she's not.
Yeah. And then she goes to the Empire State Building. They meet. And that's the end of the movie.
And more magic for Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks looks at her and is just in love. And he literally knows nothing about her, has never interacted with her, has spoken a single word to her, and has seen a very short letter from her.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, let's hold hands and go.
And, it's the end of the romantic comedy. We're supposed to assume they...
live happily ever after.
They go off to be a couple. Like, it's magic. It's meant to be. This movie really sucks.
See, we summed that up so quickly because, honestly, 3 things happen in this movie.
There are no events in this movie.
Nothing. And we both liked the way Tom Hanks interacted with his child.
Yes.
And their conversations together were interesting. That was a good part of the movie. We kind of liked the conversations in general in this movie.
Yes. The strength of this movie is the dialogue, by and large. And we were saying that you don't really see this kind of dialogue in movies as much anymore. The quick, I was comparing it to Seinfeld, rapid dialogue.
Fast and quick.
Everybody's smart and witty. Even every character is. It's kind of a detriment a little bit. We talked about when the 2 kids are talking, they also are using this exact same dialogue, which makes no sense.
Feels not natural.
But for the most part, it's good. And we specifically liked the conversations that were about nothing, which is why it made me think of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
What was it? Tom Hanks and his friend were talking about in the diner.
Oh, I don't know. Dating again.
Yeah, it really was about nothing.
Yeah.
And it felt very real. It felt genuine.
Yeah, like an actual conversation that would have happened.
So the dialogue is a strength in this movie, as are all the Nora Ephron. What'd you think of the side characters in this movie?
We liked Rosie O'Donnell.
We did like Rosie O'Donnell.
Up until the very end where she was the only one who was like...
You're crazy.
Yeah, this is not what love is. Love is, this, that, and the other. It's not some magic thing. And she was kind of trying to talk some sense to her until the very end, where she's like, no, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, she's like, it's crazy, but this is the right thing to do.
What?
No, this is nonsense. I think, it would not be, held in high regard, I don't think, today if it went this way, but I kept hoping for, and I said while we were watching it, that this movie would turn into an anti-romantic comedy, where at the end it's just Meg Ryan waking up and realizing, oh, I'm not actually in love with Sleepless in Seattle guy, I'm just not satisfied with my current relationship. I need to be open and say that, and then if their paths just barely missed and they didn't speak, but Meg Ryan went on to be whatever her life was going to be.
I was going to say, or even if they just, missed each other at the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Meg Ryan was up at the top alone, having to, confront what her life was now and what she wanted to do.
Right. And for Sam being like, I still have my son. Like, you could rewrite a little bit so that maybe he's been a little distant from his son, and then realize at the end, like, I've just been a little distant. This is good, what I have. But I think that's one of the big problems with the movie is that Tom Hanks' character has nowhere to go. He's, like, to me, rock solid from the beginning. He's grieving, but he's dealing with it in a very healthy way.
And he's still a good dad.
And he's still a good dad. He's a good man. And he even early on in the movie is like, okay, maybe I should start dating just to put myself back out there. Which I think is fine, too.
And that's what he says to his son, too. He's like, I'm not marrying this woman. She's not moving in. She's not living with us. I'm just trying to go on dates with her.
Right.
Like, that's it.
Which is also what you wanted me to do.
Right. Like, what the fuck do you want from me, kid? You thick-necked bastard.
We don't like the kid.
The kid sucked.
He started out okay.
He did.
I was on board with, like, okay, it's Christmas time.
He misses having a mother figure. He
and they
wants
said,
Dad to be happy.
And they said Christmas was a very special time for them. And that would have been very hard. And so, yeah, he calls, and even the psychiatrist, like, says to Sam, the dad, like, your son is trying to reach out to you right now. That's all very good.
Sure.
And as Sam's on the phone, his son's falling asleep, and he's, like, comforting his son. And it's like, this is all good.
They have a nice little relationship.
And then eventually it just falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
And his son is a huge brat. And
then his son is obsessed with Annie for no reason other than one single letter.
No discernible reason why she's so special.
Yeah.
And also starts dating another little girl. Whatever this girl is.
Jessica.
What is this girl?
She's a little bitch.
What is the point of her in this script?
They spin around in their little egg chair, and Sam and the son have a conversation, and then Jessica goes, H&G, hi and goodbye. We're like, what the fuck is that? That's nothing.
No one ever said that.
No one's ever said that. Never.
It would be so easy to have, like, you know, time specific slang that, you know, an adult would be like, what are you talking about? But why that in particular?
I mean, I guess I wasn't alive in 1993.
Maybe someone would say, like, oh man, H&G was hot back then.
Listeners, let us know.
Yeah, sure.
Did you ever use H&G in 1993?
It was awful. I just don't know what the point of her is.
Maybe
she eggs on the son. Go to New York.
Right.
But he could have done that on his own volition.
Well, maybe they thought we'd assume that he's too stupid to figure it out.
That's very possible.
How to get a plane ticket. And, like, she was like, I'm going to lie and say you're 12 so you can fly alone. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'll write a note that says you're a really short 12-year-old. Like...
I think... So here's me rewriting it in my head. You know, I want to get to the end of the movie where, at the beginning... Tom Hanks isn't rock solid. He's a little distant. Mm-hmm. He's grieving and not dealing with it very well, so he's kind of distant from his son. His son, therefore, has to be more independent. So we get a lot more scenes of the son alone in the house, cooking for himself, making phone calls to take care of things around the house, to establish he can get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So then...
he doesn't need the friends.
So then when he books his own flight, it makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need this stupid side character who does nothing and is pointless.
And it's generally unlikable.
Very unlikable.
The thing I would change about this movie is everything. There's no chemistry. I can't believe that this is a romantic comedy and the two main characters don't even get a chance to have chemistry together.
Yeah, I looked at a contemporary review at the time. Critics praised their on-screen chemistry. Literally, why? They don't
even
interact. So I can
say one word until the end.
I don't get it.
I know that they can have chemistry together. Obviously, we've seen it before, but they don't get a chance to have chemistry in this movie.
I think that's what's weird about it is that I know they have chemistry,
but they don't even use it.
But the movie before this was Joe versus the Volcano. You've Got Mail came after, so this wasn't based on anything extra. It was. What, just the two words they say to each other? It's like, wow, such chemistry.
So Joe versus Volcano... I was trying to figure this out, because I was like, maybe they did this movie because they felt like there was such good chemistry in You've Got Mail, but no, You've Got Mail was the third one to come out. Joe versus the Volcano was the first one, so maybe they had really good chemistry in that first one. They were like, let's try to do a repeat.
But nobody liked that one.
Well, they don't even get a chance to interact in this movie, which sucks.
It does. I don't think
These could have been two complete two random actors.
Definitely.
That didn't need to be Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Definitely. Well, I do think if it wasn't Tom Hanks, I like Tom Hanks on his own in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's still charming and funny, and is Tom Hanks. And Meg Ryan,
sucks. Before
she goes insane, is charming Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
So you've got that going for you. One thing I do think is weird is that I was looking again at reviews of this, and there is a section about how modern audiences feel. And I read a quote talking about how it verges into stalker territory.
Verges?
And that was my comment. My comment was like, verges.
This is stalking.
It's just stalking.
Yeah.
She is just a stalker. One thing I think is odd is that the movie itself recognizes that to a degree, where Meg Ryan and Rosie O'Donnell, Becky, the friend character, are talking about this. Like, is this crazy? And Rosie is like, yeah, this is weird. You shouldn't be doing this, basically. So, even the movie itself kind of recognizes this is odd. It's a weird movie.
It's really weird.
It's not...
It could have been good if they changed quite a few things.
Yes. It's the premise is okay, like you said.
Yeah.
But you really, I just don't know how you make... It's like You've Got Mail is, the better version of the... Very similar, where it's our two characters aren't directly interacting, but they have to interact somehow.
Yeah.
There's a distance between them, but they need to interact.
Yeah.
And I was comparing it to our first review, Pride and Prejudice, where our two leads, Mr. Darcy and Lizzie, are interacting from the very beginning of the movie, and you're seeing their dynamic grow and change over time. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan don't have a dynamic in this movie.
No. They meet kind of twice, but really only once.
They don't really... They just say hi.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks thinks she's hot. She's stalking him.
That's so weird. That's so weird.
And at the end...
This should have been a horror movie.
Yeah. It's not good. And I don't like the message, which is, again, the message of the movie to me seems to be there is magic. There is,
Which we talk about, the soulmate magic thing in our commentary.
Yeah. And it's it's so... I'm not even mad, if you want to do a movie where it's where we should be together. Wedding Singer, that's not really a theme, but it has the classic thing of these two, these two should be together, and then at the end they are together.
Yeah. That's
the heart of romantic comedies. I'm fine with that.
And they get so much time in that movie to have chemistry together.
Exactly. Just
a huge difference.
There's a reason you're rooting for them to be together, because you see how happy they are when they are together.
Yeah.
And there are obstacles in their way. This movie's only obstacles.
Yeah.
And no reason for them to be together.
It's so weird. I wouldn't even classify this as a romance, because I can't have a romance with no chemistry.
With no interaction.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. You can have two characters who are supposed to be romantic leads with no chemistry. These two people don't talk to each other.
They don't even get to see each other.
At all.
I read lots of hokey romance novels all the time, and lots of stupid smut novels. And I enjoy them because there's chemistry. I wouldn't even qualify this as a romance movie. Because you don't...
No.
There's no romance.
No, this is not a good... the climax is on Valentine's.
There's not much comedy either.
No. The only comedy comes from some of the character interaction, friend to friend.
Yeah.
And that's, as we said, that's the best part of the movie, probably.
Or we laughed at the horses.
Yes. That was the best part of the movie.
Which is probably just Meg Ryan, riffing.
It's just, that's the mundane comedy that I like. She's just driving home, listening to Christmas carols.
A really weird song.
And that felt like, this is a real person.
Yeah.
And then she loses her goddamn mind.
It turns into a horror movie. This could have been a really good horror movie.
I would love to see Jordan Peele direct an adaptation of Sleepless in Seattle.
That could be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just call it Sleepless.
Seattle.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention. I do need to specifically mention the music.
The music, yes, okay.
I hate the music in this movie.
Very on the nose.
It's very on the nose. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not like the music is ever like really a horrible fit for what's happening.
It's too good of a fit.
Uh,
Contextually.
I suppose so. But yeah, we were making fun of it like when we were getting to the closing scene. You were singing a song about, I'm gonna climb the Empire State Building.
My son. Yeah.
Because they're like, I'm trying to think of some examples. He decides, Tom Hanks is like, you know what, I do need to start dating again. And they start playing Back in the Saddle again.
Yeah.
And then
Stand By Your Man.
that's Meg Ryan decides, I need to go be with Bill Pullman, my
Yes.
fiance. They play Stand By Your Man.
Yes.
And then
There's a few other too.
They're in bed together, and like Bill Pullman's being presented as very unsexy with his,
humidifier,
gadgets,
tissues,
and
eye drops.
there's some song about, I don't know, knocking boots or shacking up or something like that. It's just every song like that was just like hit you over that. It's like, do you get what's happening right now?
Kenny likes subtlety more than anything.
I do like subtlety. I don't know. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if this is just me being too picky.
The music just felt. I mean, like I said, it felt too on the nose. It was just a little bit hokey. Like you could have had just instrumental for any of those parts, and it would have sounded fine.
Yeah, totally. I suppose I guess in now understanding the movie a bit better, it's so inspired by An Affair to Remember. It's going for a more hokey feel. Maybe there's something to that. As a modern viewer, did not work for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say.
When did An Affair to Remember come out?
1953.
Do you have any clue? Because I think that's a lie.
Hold on.
You looked me dead in the eyes and told me so seriously. You can't trust anything he says.
1957. Pretty good.
So do you think a lot of people who are watching this movie for the first time were remembering that movie? Or were able to connect to that movie?
I don't know. I think it depends. Like, there are old movies that you could count on a certain audience to understand and have reference to. Like, a movie directed at our age demographic that was riffing on Wizard of Oz, we would get all of that stuff, even though that was well before our time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm just saying this movie doesn't stand up on its own.
No, not even a little bit.
So that begs the question, then. What do we rate it, and who would we recommend it to?
Ooh.
Do you want me to go first on what I rate it? I give this 1 out of 3 Hanks Ryan co-leads. They were in 3 movies together. I am very confident
this is the worst one.
This is the worst of them. So I give it 1 out of 3. Not good.
Okay.
Skippable.
Yeah.
Very
majorly
skippable. This is what, like we said at the beginning, we wanted to watch a movie that is considered largely a classic that we haven't seen. If you're like us, you haven't seen Sleepless in Seattle.
You don't need to.
You don't need to, unless you're going to watch it with our commentary track, in which case, buckle up, it's a good time.
I rated this 5 strawberry-related deaths, aka really bad.
So this is a scale of badness.
Yeah.
And this hits the max.
5 bads for that one. And that's a reference to Kenny believing that Bill Pullman was going to die in the beginning and it was going to be strawberry-related.
I really wanted him to die. I think the movie would have been 10 times better if Bill Pullman just died at the beginning.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, and then recommendations. Would you recommend this to someone? Who would you recommend it to?
I said it's perfect for... I really don't fucking know, man. If you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for romance movies and you haven't seen this one, I get... if you wanted to make sure you got all the main ones, all the classics, watch it, I guess.
That's a fine recommendation.
Otherwise, yeah, skippable.
That's a fine recommendation. I had 2 people I'd recommend this to. If you're really nostalgic for the quippy, witty 90s comedy style writing,
Need that Nora Ephron.
Then yeah, go for it. You're going to get your Nora Ephron fix if you watch this movie. And I would also recommend this to people who are really and truly hopeless romantics. Lots of people like to say they're hopeless romantics, but I mean people who are really hopeless romantics,
Fully hopeless.
like really dumb and believe in fate and soulmates and stuff,
Magic.
and you really like that idea and you really believe in it, you might get something out of this that
You might.
I just don't have access to because I just don't buy it at all.
Yeah.
And if you don't buy into it, Meg Ryan comes across as a lunatic,
A psycho.
a dangerous...
Actual... I don't say that lightly.
No.
She's a stalker.
She's an actual psychotic.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. Sleepless in Seattle.
A+.
Well, good time. This was what would you give this experiment we did of watching a movie sight unseen? Questionable?
I think we picked a bad one.
We need to get recommendations from people who say, like, you should check this out.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we had picked something else that neither of us had seen, it probably would have been a good experience.
So we're going to keep our ear to the ground. We're going to listen for people we know, and if you want to comment online,
let us
like,
know what you think we should watch.
here's some great movie, some hidden gem that you maybe didn't watch and you should check out. Let us know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll check it out.
Probably not. No,
Probably
I'm just
not.
kidding.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. This has been Watching Movies. I've been Kenny.
And I've been April.
We'll see you next time.
Bye!
Sometimes, winning a game isn't about dealing the most damage, or drawing the most cards, or making any measurable contribution towards victory. But hey, just because you don't have the stats doesn't mean you're not a f***ing gamer god, alright? Enter The Intangibles, a podcast on the Geekspective Network, where me, Kenny, and my brother Matt break down all the things that are hard to quantify in games. All kinds of games. We're talking classics like Sonic's the Hedgehogs, and chess, and 3D Pinball Space Cadet. Great game, by the way. We're talking new releases like
Insert latest trending games on Twitch here.
single player, co-op, competitive, card games, board games, role-playing games, play-by-mail games, the Wakes. We do deep dives into our favorite games, digging into the intangibles that make them great and the intangibles that will make you a better player, and hey, maybe even a better person. Check out the intangibles on whatever the heck platform you're listening to right now.